Hey guys, EthDo here, and today I'm back with an all new Minecraft video. And in today's video, we'll be reviewing the new Minecraft textures, the default textures for update 1.13. As many of you may have already seen in my update 1.13 5 things you should know video, the textures are actually changing in a big way in that update. The update hasn't yet been released, but the textures have. We'll be giving an honest review on it. This is not a sponsored video. This is just my personal opinion. And this is, like I say, probably the first time we've ever seen a change on this scale for the textures. I know charcoal has changed in the past, lapis lazuli has changed in the past, and a couple others what we've seen recently as well, with the changing colours for 1.12. But this has changed almost every block and item in the game for the foreseeable future. They have released this texture pack just so that people can trial them out and give feedback to Mojang, and they may then make some changes or some adjustments. And I'm really hoping they do, because what we're looking at here are my personal dislikes from the pack. And over here we have some of the textures I'm more keen on. I wouldn't say these are necessarily better than our previous default textures, but compared to some of these, they are not too bad. And then I'll also be just having a look through all of the textures through the creative inventory and just highlighting one or two things extra that I've noticed. Feel free to leave your opinions in the comments. I'm sure there'll be lots of agreement and disagreement. Some of you may see the same things I do. Others may think that my selection of bad blocks and items is actually your selection of good blocks and items, and that's perfectly fine. We're all entitled to our own opinion. So let's start off with these ones here. Now these are by far, for me personally, the worst changes in the pack, and quite possibly one of the worst changes I've seen to a Minecraft update in a very long time. The snowball is... it's not one of the worst here, but I still think of the pack of itself, it's a very poor change. It's too blue, way too blue compared to the previous snowball, which was a very clear, just completely white, which for me is what snow normally looks like. I know it's somewhat caricatured, it's a bit icy maybe, but it's not really doing anything for me. The diamond doesn't look so bad when it's in an item frame, but on your hotbar, it just looks like a blue circle with a little bit of white in the top left corner. There's no, you can't clearly see the gradient in the diamond, which you could in the previous texture. You can a bit on when it's held in your hand. You can see there's kind of the rectangle in the middle, but that really doesn't come out at all on the hotbar, which is a shame. Wheat is by far one of the worst textures in here. It's got to be in my top 5 worst textures. It just looks unhealthy. I mean, the wheat before was vibrant, it was quite bright. This wheat looks dishevelled, and I don't even know. I mean, it just doesn't, the colour is all wrong. It's far too dark. There's a lot of dark patches on that. It doesn't look like a healthy, lush growing wheat whatsoever. Foods and the food stuff, which I will come on to a bit more later, but I think they are the absolute worst in the pack. As a topic on here, as like a genre, its foodstuffs is by far the worst. Apples, the apple themselves doesn't look too bad, but the golden apples really doesn't look good. I don't like the colour. I liked the previous version, was very vibrant. It was cartoonish, but in a really good way. It looks like they've tried to be too realistic here, and it hasn't panned out. And then we get on to potatoes. I mean, wow. The previous potato didn't look great, but it didn't look anything like this, which looks even worse than a hot. It looks like a hot dog, kind of. I don't even know what it looks like on the... I barely recognised it when I actually went on here the first time. I had to hover over it to see it was baked potato. The potatoes themselves don't look much better. The poisonous potato is a bit hit and miss, but again, I still preferred the previous ones. Other foodstuffs, the golden carrot, not technically a foodstuff, but close enough. It just looks a bit too pointy. I know it's a carrot, I realise that, but you see what I mean? It looks a bit too long. Colour's not really right for me. I preferred the previous one. Glowstone dust, if you were wondering what that is, just by looking at it, hard to tell that's glowstone dust. The colour is completely wrong compared to the previous version. I know I'm being very critical here, and I realise some of you may not agree with this, but you know, this is my personal opinion. I do have some things I do like, so this video will get more positive as it goes on, possibly. But we are just starting with the worst here. This is very close. It's probably my joint least favourite addition. I could barely believe it was glowstone when I saw it. The glowstone block, weirdly, looks fine. It doesn't look so bad. The colour is still what it used to be, whereas the glowstone dust has gone to this kind of beige, very light brown orange colour. It's nothing like it used to be. Very disappointed in glowstone dust. Hopefully they'll change it. And the Totem of Undying, why they felt this needed a change, considering it's such a new item, I do not know. Released in 1.11, I believe, it would have been. It's a very new item, and yet it doesn't look any better. In fact, it looks worse. In the hand, it doesn't look so bad, but on the hotbar, for me, it looks a bit caricature, a little bit too cartoony, and again, in the item frame, it just doesn't look as good as the previous version. So there are a lot of items there that I don't like, more so than items I do like. But let's move on to blocks. The bookshelves doesn't look great. It doesn't look awful, but like I say, it could also look better. Probably not too bad. Of the ones here, it's probably the better of the group, but still not great for me. Melon, if you're wondering what that was, looks horrible. I'm just gonna say it as it is. I can't believe they've gone with that colour. Doesn't really appeal to me at all. I actually really used to like the melon block. I thought it was one of the better designs. The colour was very nice, but now it no, I don't like that at all. Colour just seems off. It doesn't look very vibrant, so not a good one. I can see what they were going for with Mossy Cobble. It actually looks a bit better when it's when you're up close to it, I guess. I don't know. It probably did look a bit better than the previous a mossy stone. Yeah, it could look better though. It could definitely look better. The soul sand is hands down one of the worst as well. We used to be able to distinctively make out the faces, whereas now it's, you got two eyes and a little mouth there. It's very bland compared to the previous one. Looks a noticeable downgrade actually. That's probably one of the biggest downgrades I've noticed, because I really used to like the mossy soul sand, sorry. Soul sand used to be really nice, whereas now I think it doesn't have nearly enough clarity that it used to. Netherrack as well. I'm looking forward to going to the Nether, that's for sure. Netherrack never really used to look good, but I don't really like I don't feel like this is an improvement anyway. Just looks a little bit too granulated, a little bit too pixeled. I realise it never used to look good, but I would have preferred if they could have done something better with it. Prismarine didn't feel this needed a change, considering it was released in 1.8, which is still relatively recent. Not so recent as some other features, but still in the modern era, if you will. It doesn't look awful. It doesn't look too bad, but I did like the previous version. That's the case of a lot of these. There are a couple, like the melon block, that I really just hate. But other than that, and some of these foodstuffs and the glowstone, most of the ones here are just ones that I feel like they just downgraded on the previous version, which doesn't make any sense. Like, why would a new update make the textures look worse? I'm all for new textures if they improve on the previous version, but in a case like this, where it seems to be just a noticeable downgrade, I can't really understand it. Note block, again, similar issue to the Netherrack, just looks a little bit too pixelated. There's too many changes to the pattern. I feel like they tried to overdo it a bit on that one, trying to go too detailed. And then we've got the birch wood as well, which, again, it doesn't look so bad when it's an individual block, but you have an entire tree's worth. If you've seen the images that they released for the original 1.13 thread on Wiki, which I used in the 1.13 5 Things You Should Know video, if you see the tree in that, it actually looks very poor compared in a direct comparison with the previous version. I feel like I could get used to this one, to be fair, but it is still one of the weaker changes. Now, considering this has been a very negative video so far, let's move on to some positives that I can bring out of this texture pack review, these are some of the blocks that I do actually like the new versions of. They're not all necessarily better than the older versions, but they are noticeably more... Yeah, I can feel like I can get used to this quite quickly. So let's start with the redstone. I know that's a distinctive change, and I feel like this is going to be a particularly controversial opinion, but I actually like the new redstone. I think it's a bit more vibrant, there's more saturation to the colour. It just brings out the red in redstone a little bit more, and I quite like that. I realise it's a very iconic image, so to change that could be controversial, and I know there will be people who disagree, but personally I think that's a good change. TNT is another one where I wouldn't say it's necessarily an upgrade on the previous version, but I feel like it's different enough that it can be held in high regard in its own merit and not really compared to the previous version. It's one of the few that actually does that, in that it's so different to the old version that I feel like they can both be good. So I do actually like that one. Pumpkin is probably one of just a handful of blocks I would say is a definite improvement on the previous version. You may notice here the way it's designed in the textures, it actually looks as though it's not quite a square. It almost looks as though it's curving up towards the top. It's getting wider at the top like an actual pumpkin would do. And I can't quite work out if that's actually what they've done, therefore going against the everything is exactly square model that Minecraft has been built upon, or whether it's actually just the trick of the texturing. It genuinely looks as though it does get wider at the top. Very close. If that is the case, and it's literally just the texture that is doing that, then bravo, because that is very impressive. It might literally just be that it's not an exact square anymore, but we'll have to wait and find out, because I've only been able to see these textures for a very short time, so this is literally my first opinions on things. The emerald block and a diamond block, I know some people are dead against these, but there are others who like them. Personally, I think they're good. Whether I would say that they're an improvement on the previous version, it's hard to say, but at the moment I'm leaning towards yes, I think they are. They look a little bit more glamorous, a little bit more prestigious than the previous version. For me, the diamond block before looked a little bit plain, considering it took 9 diamonds to craft, whereas if you were to build something now out of this diamond block or this emerald block, it would look very jazzy, very professional and lucrative, I guess. They just look that little bit more prestigious, and I really like that. Now the wood planks, I know a lot of people again were against these, but I actually quite like them. I realise that again that's probably a controversial opinion, but I think it actually looks a little bit more cartoony, but in a good way, and it just generally looks a little bit cozy as well. I think if you've seen the screenshots of the house that was built using these textures in my 1.13 5 things you should know, you'll know exactly what I want about, in the fact that it can look quite cozy and quite nice, a little bit cartoony, but in the right way. The new mushroom, the toadstool, is actually one of my favourites. I think it's a definite improvement on the previous version. If I can just grab the mushroom here, you can't see it so much in your hand, but it looks really nice and Disney-like on the hotbar, and I really like that. The enchanting table, I half like and half don't. I like the top half, I'm not so keen on the bottom half. Obsidian for me was at one point in this pile over here, but I took it out because I'm still not really sure whether I like it or I don't. Obsidian never looked great before, and I realise they've tried to make it better, and I appreciate that they've tried to improve upon that texture, but it hasn't quite worked for me yet. Maybe it'll grow on me, maybe it won't. But I do like the top half. I think the top half looks a lot better. I prefer this colour of red. A little bit darker, a little bit more burgundy in parts. I think that's an improvement on the previous version. And the diamonds look to glisten a bit more, a little bit brighter. Looks a bit better. And I actually like the tint of the pages as well, which I seem to think the previous version had plain white pages, whereas now the pages look a little bit old, a little bit weathered, and I think that fits well with the enchanting table. The poppy is actually, again, another one that I feel is improved definitely on the previous version. It just looks a little bit more realistic, and I think that's really nice. I particularly like the little thorns coming off of the stem there as well. Now, brewing and potions, as in terms of a subgenre, definitely the most improved upon area. We'll have a good look at those in a moment. The brewing stand looks similar to before, but maybe a little bit better, with the orange at the bottom of the blaze rod there. Not much change with that one, but nice and the same, or nonetheless. And then we've actually got the potions, and I think the potions are a definite improvement on the previous version. They look a little bit more cartoony, but a little bit more clearer as well. They used to look quite pixelated, at least compared to some other blocks, whereas now I think the glass seems to bulge a little bit more. The potion itself, they're more distinctively different. The colouring is just a bit improved. Generally improved all around. So let's finish off here by just taking a good look through everything. Now, of course, if you can download the textures yourself, you can have a look at the same time as I do, and just see which bits you like and dislike. So let's start with building blocks. For the most part, they look pretty similar, to be fair. I mean, the ones I haven't included in this pile and this pile are all the blocks that I thought looked okay, and I didn't really have too big an issue with. Didn't necessarily like them enough to go in the right pile, but didn't hate them enough to go in the left pile. The ores, let's have a quick look at the ores. The ores really don't look that much different. There's a little bit more colouring behind each one, but I think that's arguably an improvement. Glass is a controversial one, because I know some people have combined textures, and that will probably have a great effect on whether you like or dislike that one. The vibrancy of the wool since the 1.12 is nice. There's the obsidian. Let's have a quick look at that one. Again, really don't know if I like that or not. Glowstone. Glowstone still looks fairly good to me. The colouring, I guess, has changed a little bit, but it still looks enough like glowstone. I literally did not recognise glowstone dust. That's how much that changed. How much they've changed that. The new jack-o'-lantern also looks nice. The melon sticks out so badly there. Really don't like that one. Nether quartz, I haven't had a good look at this one yet. Let's have a look here, if I can put it down. Looks very similar, might be one of the few blocks that has avoided any major changes. I think it has changed a little bit, but not enough to be noticeable. Hay bale. See, the hay bale, compare that with the colour of the wheat. I mean, what even is that? The hay bale looks perfectly fine and normal, but the wheat looks even worse by comparison to the hay bale. The colouring is completely off for my personal likes. Everything else here looks perfectly fine. No issues with any of the building blocks there. I do like all the colouring on the wools and the terracotta. Onto decoration blocks. The leaves I'm a bit unsure about yet. I'm going to need some more time to decide on those, but I think they look okay. I'm not a big fan, but I think they're alright. Flowers are, I would say, improved for the most part, as we saw with the poppy earlier. Crafting table looks fine to me. I know some people had a little bit of a problem with that one, because it's such an iconic block, but I actually quite like the new crafting table. And a new furnace looks a little bit more cartoony as well. And again, I think that's an improvement. Everything else in this section looks fine. I actually like the new painting item frame there. Onto redstone. Again, I would say generally there's nothing really here that jumps out that I dislike. Gold pressure plate actually looks really nice. I really like that actually. That should have been in my pile over here. Let's add it to the pile. That looks fantastic. I hadn't noticed what that one yet, but not that I use those very often. That's probably why it didn't jump straight out at me. The iron one doesn't look that much different. But yeah, the gold one is very nice. I really like the change in the colouring there. It looks far more detailed than before. Transportation, I'm not a big fan of any of these. The saddle I think is okay. The boats don't look good like this, but they look better than they used to once they've actually been placed, so I had to leave that one as a hit and miss. Onto the miscellaneous. Now, I don't like the buckets. I'm really not a huge fan of the buckets. They didn't quite make my list of hated items. I think they're okay, but yeah, not great. Bone looks fine. The glowstone dust, did not recognise it. The mobs, I haven't had a good look at the mobs yet, but for the most part they look pretty similar to how they used to. They haven't really made any major changes to the mobs that I've noticed. The map actually looks quite nice. The new emerald looks far better than the new diamond. compare, let's lose the 64. Compare the new emerald to the new diamond on your hotbar. Blue circle, emerald. Doesn't look like a diamond at all to me. The emerald looks very nice. The new quartz I don't like, but the old version was not very good either, so I don't really have too big an issue with that one. Foodstuffs, like I said earlier, is horrible. I'm really not a fan of the new food items. The cookie looks okay, and they haven't really made much of a change to mutton, but the potato looks terrible. The baked potato, and I'm not a big fan of the poisonous potato either. The pumpkin pie isn't great, but it's definitely a downgrade on the previous version. Chicken looks fine. The fish look okay. The raw salmon, not so much. It looks a little bit thinner. And the black outline doesn't seem to work that well with the raw salmon. I'm not sure what's gone wrong there. It doesn't quite seem to add up. The fish looks okay. Not a fan, as I've previously mentioned, of the golden apples. Other than that, they're okay, but oh my god, these potatoes. When you're holding the poisonous potato, it looks okay. It doesn't look good on the hotbar. The baked potato looks disgusting. And the normal potato, again, I'm not a big fan of. I definitely preferred the previous version. On to tools. Tools haven't really changed much at all. The lead has changed colour, but that's fine. The shears look a little bit more cartoony, but they actually look more defined in your hand, so I'm happy with that one. And the tools themselves look as normal as ever. The enchanted books, again, same kind of thing. They haven't really changed much to combat. It all looks very similar. Let's see if the diamond armor looks any different when you're wearing it. I don't believe it does. Oh, it does actually, it does. It looks a little bit more defined, similar to the diamond block. Actually, let's put a full set on just to get a good look at this. I actually prefer that. I know that might be a controversial opinion, but I think that looks better. It looks that a little bit more prestigious, like I mentioned with the previously with the block. I am actually a big fan of that change. The spectral arrow in gold looks fantastic. I like that. Golden arrows, that's cool. The Totem of Undying looks ridiculous. I really don't like the Totem of Undying on your hotbar. It sticks out so badly on what is otherwise a good set here. Everything else looks fine here. Has the sword changed much? Sword looks the same. Everything else here I'm fine with. And you get down to the Totem of Undying and it jumps out at you and it looks terrible. Onto brewing. The brewing looks really good. Another section that I think is done really well. The potions just look that much clearer. It's clearer to see which is which. The colouring is improved. Loving the look of leaping, even though I'm not a fan of the potion. Do think they look very nice. Fermented spider eye, quite like. And the dragon's breath looks good. Not a fan of the golden carrot, as we've already mentioned, but other than that, it all looks fine here. And the splash potions and the lingering potions also look very nice. So they are the changes to Minecraft's default textures. Do let me know what your opinion was. This was of course just my opinion and yours is likely to differ from my own. So head down to the comments and have your say. I'll also put a poll up on the new Facebook page you can go on to and say whether you like or dislike the new textures. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, do take just 1 second to hit that like button and thanks for watching.